Hi, and welcome to another Rigonomicon.com video. Today we're going to be talking about skinning. I know it's not everybody's favorite thing, but it is a must that we have to pass through. It's probably one of the least interesting parts of rigging, but we need to understand how it works, and we need to know how to create them because we can't continue with using sushi rigs because sushi rigs are just chopping up meshes. They leave a lot of gaps between joints, and honestly, we can't animate with that professionally. And also, game engines don't really understand what a sushi rig is, so we need to start doing some skinning. So this character is a perfect character to skin because you can start with, first of all, the like if I could hide the armor here, you have this mesh that we're going to be skinning. It's a good base mesh that you can then transfer skin weights to other things. This is a great model to start with. But before we even do that, we need to understand how skins work. So I'm going to go ahead and start a new scene. And I'm going to go ahead and create. We're going to make like a fake knee type of thing, just using a cylinder, and we're just going to have two bones to be able to bend it. And I'll have a little chat about what bones and joints are. They're a little different. Okay, so first I'm just going to create a cylinder. Since I have the history on, I can modify its values. I'm going to make it a height of 20 and subdivision on the height of 20 as well. So my vertices are going to be aligned with the grid once I rotate this with the J button held down so that I can snap. So basically, I should be on the grid for every vertice segment. Let's make this a little wider. Let's make it a width of 2. I mean, we are dealing with a leg, so this is going to be where the knee is. And we're going to see if we can get some joints in there. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the X-ray button here, and I'm going to go create some joints, and I'm going to press X to snap onto the grid. I believe that's at 0, 0, and there we go. There we go. So all good, right? And we're traveling 11 units away from each one. So that makes all the sense in the world because we're this was a size of 20 and we wanted just a little extra to be able to select things easy. All right, so real quick here, the difference between a bone and a joint is significant. Actually, bones are easy to understand. We have them in our body. For each area of a body part, you can define a bone. Kind of like the sushi rig, we decided these vertices are going to be for something that we define as a head bone or a neck bone. Nice and easy. In Maya, we use joints, which is slightly different, and there's a small thing that you have to keep in mind. So in the case of this leg, this is going to be the thigh bone, and this joint is defined by its child node and any other child node that it would have. So the volume that it has depends on joining the joint, right? The word joint. So it shows basically the distance between those two, and this is the volume that it's defining as. So for some of the skinning tools that we're going to have, you need to make sure that that's clear because you need to add sometimes child nodes for it to understand what the actual volume that this joint is taking, or bone zone. And the same thing with this guy. You're going to find that you need to add this extra kind of node that technically you shouldn't need this, but because it's a joint, you kind of need this. And everybody has a different terminology for this. I've used softwares before where they call it a nub. I remember someone who used to call it la suegra, which is Spanish for the mother-in-law. And it's like the unwanted node. But the thing is, though, it is definitely wanted in the Maya scenario because you want to be able to define the volume of the parent that it's attached to. So this bone is defined by its child, and the distance between the two. That little line that it's drawing is important. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. No more about that. And then we're going to be using this later on to be able to define our areas, and then we're going to delete them because when we get into a game engine, for example, you do not need these. In fact, you have to get rid of them because you're just adding extra stuff for nothing. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a quick skin onto this. So I select the mesh and I select the root node. There we go. So don't know why that was happening, but if I go to skin, bind skin, let's just make sure that it doesn't matter which one you use. The only thing right now that we care about is the number of influences, meaning how many bones can affect a single vertex. So in this case, I'm just going to set it to 2 for now, and we don't care about the other settings for the moment because we're going to be overwriting that anyways. And don't mind this. This is a current issue with geodesic voxel. There's a mel script error, but it's not an issue. All right, and I'm one of those people who wants to know what every error is. So from my perspective, it's okay. As long as we know what's going on and if everything is still okay. If you're using Bacon Strip, you're going to find that I've added a new button called Skin, and this allows us to quickly just go into the skin mode. And if you can see here, you have the tool you can double click on to open up its settings, and you can see which bones are being added and so on. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to select, and here's a fun thing that you should keep in mind, okay? When you're in Maya and you're doing skinning and you're jumping between paint and select, because this is a really useful method of saying, okay, I want to affect things or I want to limit what I can paint. You can do that through a selection. And something that's very important, if you try to select things just out of the box like this, you're gonna be selecting other objects and then you're out of the skin tool. So what you need to do is to make sure that you remain within the skin tool, is to hit this button here so that you're in the sub mode. And then at this point, if you go like this, it's like you can actually select all to your heart's content through a marquee select, and no problem, you're not accidentally selecting other things and getting out of this mode. It's a little tricky with this window, so keep that in mind. I also want to mention really quick, there's a plugin that I would strongly suggest called NG Skin. The NG Skin tool is it's been used for a lot of people use it. It adds functionality to Maya and its skinning. I'm going to be very, very honest. Every software, okay, and anybody who says that one software is the best for everything is fooling themselves. Okay, that's ridiculous. Some software, I don't know, XSI was pretty good overall. But anyways, the point is, let's not get into software wars. Let's just accept that every software has its strengths. It also has its weaknesses. I think skinning as a base is kind of busted in Maya. It hasn't been updated in a very long time. However, Autodesk has been adding more tools that simplify the process of skinning. So you're doing less and less, painting. And a little bit more, you're taking control of things through some pretty good algorithms now that generate good skins, and then you have deformers. Anyways, my point is, everything I'm going to be doing here is going to be it's going to be a little rough. We're going to be jumping between paint and select, and then setting these settings, and there's a lot of clicking. So just know that this is how it is right now in Maya, okay? And for painting stuff, in other softwares, this is much smoother. And this is not the strength of Maya. Let's be honest. Painting stuff there's been a lot of people that swear by painting, but no, it's not necessarily the best thing in the world. Although the painting tools are pretty solid, so give and take. Okay, so let's just focus on the strengths of Maya while we're doing this. So I'm going to click the flood button. Let's see, paint. It might be good to put it to replace and make sure that all the values are there. There you go. So one way to visualize this is that when you're doing a skinning, the values are basically, by default, are going to be black and white. And you're creating masks. Think of like an alpha mask in an image where you're saying what's transparent and what's not. In the case of skinning, you're saying what gets affected and what doesn't, and by how much. So in the case of joint 1, which is the first bone there, if I rotate, like I'm going to jump out here, go back to object mode. If I select this object and I rotate it now at this point, you're going to notice the whole cylinder follows it as if the cylinder was parented to that node. And in essence, it's similar. It's almost as if every vertice was parented to the root node by basically setting it to 100% to that one bone. But we need to have some influence from this, and I'm gonna set some keys on this. So here we go. I'm gonna just go to frame 30, and then I'm gonna rotate it, and I'm gonna do Shift E again. It's gonna set keys just to rotation. So we need to make this happen so the knee bends downward, and we can see what that looks like. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go back to this. And once again, well, I already have it here, so let's double click it and everything should kick in again. And I'm going to go to select with the option here. And I'm going to just rotate it so I can see all these vertices from the second half. We're going to deal with the one right smack in the middle in a second. So if I go back to painting and I go to the second joint and I go flood, basically what I'm saying is now these vertices, okay, that I've painted white will follow the bone, that second bone. And so now it bends downward, right? So that's nice and easy. Now I'm going to go into select mode and I'm going to select the bones that are right in the middle. So these vertices in the middle, right? And now I've got them like this at 0% for joint 2. So we can set a value of 0.5 here. Go flood. And this happens every once in a while. It gets a little confused. There we go. So until you've actually applied weights to both, it will think that they're going 100% to one or the other. So now if you look at it, they're now 50% for both of those joints. I went through both joints to do that. You could have also just selected this vertice and gone just smooth. Like you can use the smooth function or press shift while you're painting. So that's cool. So now we have this. Okay, and that's not necessarily a very nice looking deformation. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to press shift period to grow my selection, and I'm going to try that smooth button. And it's going to smooth it out a little bit. So now the other vertices, yeah, so that looks like a cylinder that's bending. It's not too bad. But you're going to find that this is still very, it's not just the number of, number of divisions on the cylinder. You're going to find that if you keep doing this and you keep, trying to do this type of thing, it's never going to be a nice sharp knee type of thing. And what you can do is you can then go into this area. And so, for example, I've got paint on. And I'm going to go into add value. And because I have a brush, like a Wacom brush, I can softly do this kind of thing. And it's going to tighten it type of thing. And then I can just go like the back of the calf. We're trying to strengthen it. And the same thing over here. This is under the thigh. So basically you'd be like, remember, this is a cylinder, so it's not very well modeled. And we have a few vertices that we could do just by shift clicking with the brush. We can fix this type of thing, and we have ourselves a pretty nice looking bend. Now, I just want to explain what's actually happening here. And you have different kinds of skin. Okay, you have what we call linear skin, which is the default one, and that's basically what every game engine uses as well. You can use something called dual quaternion, which will improve how things, when you're rotating like this, it will improve the overall look and make sure that it's a little bit pointier. Because I can't get this knee to be pointy without moving the pivot. At least we'll talk about that in a moment. So you have this kind of an effect, and if you wanted to have a pointier knee type of thing, you can't really do it. You'll notice that you'll always be always flattens out somehow. So I'm going to explain mathematically what's going on here so that we can understand the limits of what we can do. Okay, so let's say that I create I'm just going to put, we're going to create this object. I'm going to bring it up to here. So because it was a radius of 2, this is the exact position where if I bring out the wireframe, you're going to see that this object is exactly. Oh yeah, true. I have to get out of that mode. There we go. So I have this object. It's called locator, and you don't worry about which kind of locator is. It's just a point that we need. And I'm going to make a Control D copy of this one. So this one is going to be. I'm going to call this locator thigh, and I'm going to call this one locator calf. Right, so we could have named the bones as well. Like this should be the thigh, and that's the calf, or femur and tibia, whatever you want. So what all I'm going to do is I'm going to open this up, and the one for thigh is I'm going to middle click drag it onto joint 1 because that's the thigh, and this one I'm going to middle click drag onto the second one because that's that is the calf. So you know what? So that everything is clear and there's no confusion, we know that that's the thigh, and it's one of its children now is this thing, and you have it clearly being demonstrated because it's drawing the line. And over here, this object is going to be called calf, and the nub we're going to call it suegra. Okay, there we go. So we've got everything named, and we can see clearly what's going on. Okay, so just to be clear, now if we look at the animation, we're going to notice that one of these is going to detach, and it's going to be following the other bone, right? So this one is following that bone, and this one over here is following the other bone. And we're going to give it some color so we can actually see it clearly. Display wireframe color, and I'm going to make this one yellow, and I'm going to make this one magenta because that way it. Let's see, for YouTube, maybe blue. And nice thing about these tools is I can change the wire thickness because I'm using a special locator. I'm going to make this one a wire thickness of 2. So now we can see clearly it's just a locator that's located at where there's this one vertex, and it will allow us to see if this was 100% following this bone, where it would be, and if this one was following that bone, that's where it would be. Because we have these fancy tools, we're going to add a shape that creates a line between the two. Now we've got this little line being drawn. Hopefully you can see that clearly. I'm going to get rid of the wireframe. And you see that line? Well, that line's actually very important to us. And I'm going to add even another key further down. So let's say it's 60, so that we can see that as you bend even further, things are starting to look like a pillow fight, like as if you're bending a pillow, and that's not looking very nice, right? So if you look at this, like over here we were okay, but as we're getting over here, we're starting to lose a lot of volume. All right, so that's an important thing to know. I'm going to get rid of the X-ray mode because I just want to see these points, and I want to see the shape of the leg. We know that that was exactly where the vertex was, and so on. Okay, so where are we going with this? Why am I doing this? So the reason why I'm doing this, and I'm just going to go back to my skin, is to show. I'm going to select this one vertex. Right, I think I selected it. Yes, I did. Okay, it's like a yellow color. So now, if I want to, I can see what happens if I put it to 100% to that one, to the thigh, and I go paint, and I go value, and I go flood. It's going to go to 100% to that one, right? So that is 100% following that point in space. Now, as if it was parented to that joint, right? We understand that. That is clear. Now, if I were to set it to 100% to this other bone, it goes 100% there, and now it's following that point, right? So that is what we're doing. Okay, so now you have to understand that when you're painting this, I'm going to use the brush, and since I've selected the vertex, it will only affect what I'm painting is only going to affect what you're going to notice if I paint it and I go between the two. You remember that line that we drew? If you look carefully, it will only travel between those 2 points. So when we're like in this position, and I'll now see if I can give it a little bit of weight so that it goes up there. Let's see if I can actually paint it. There you go. You're going to see that it follows that line. And this is what we call linear skinning. Okay, it's as if you had these parent, like these nodes, to represent what it would do if it was following 100% one bone or another. So it can only travel between those 2 points when you're skinning, and that's an important. You need to understand that. So if I put this thing at 50% value to the calf, and then to the thigh, I put it again to 50. There you go. So right now it's doing what we had painted originally. You'll notice that it's exactly between those 2 points, right? It's at 50%, meaning it's 50% of one and 50% of the other, and it's exactly on that line that I drew between those 2 points. Hopefully that's clear, because the linear skinning, that is one of the biggest limitations that it has. Let's see if I can increase the our visual here. For the most part, the line shape, maybe I can make it red. Let's see here, color 0, and make this no transparency. There we go. So now we have a solid line. Hopefully that makes it a little bit easier to visualize. And if I go back to selecting the vertice, you'll notice that again, I'm going to go through that exercise of painting, so you can see it only travels along that line. Okay, and I can't stress this enough. Before we even touch anything, you need to understand that how that works. And every vertex in a skin, basically, you can put more than two things that affect it, but it's just going to create lines between them, and it's just going to do an average between those points, just like we did the 50%. Right? The 50% is exactly what we had. Let's see here. I'm going to do that thing again, where I need to do it on both. Okay, so at the 50% mark, think of it like an average. It took the 2 and then did 50%. Boom, it gives you your final result, which is right there. So for a bend like this, for the knee, you're losing a lot of volume as you bend it. All right, so now I'm going to show you a method to maybe adjust the outcome here if you're dealing with this, because normally I have extra bones that allow me to control the volume. So, for example, things that poke when you're bending the knee a lot, and then you put some value there. You could also put another bone here that's kind of an average between the two, and that will actually improve the outcome. But not a lot of people like doing these extra nodes, because then it's baked into the animation, and if you have anything inside of a game, for example, you need to deal with anything that could control the character's rotation, and it doesn't have the animation baked. So you'd have to create like basically a constraint within the engine that does the same effect that you'd have inside of Maya. Anyways, point is, there are many ways of preserving the volume in the knee. In the case of a knee, and this goes for every part of the body. For now, we're just going to be focusing on how do I improve it without any fancy tools or fancy objects that are there. Like if you look at the Malcolm rig, for example, you're going to find that there are actual blend shapes that have been added to increase so as you bend the knee like this, it'll actually activate a blend shape that pushes the vertex out, or not just that vertex, but everything around in that area. Okay, so this is kind of an interesting technique, but you're using blend shapes on top of something that's measuring the angle between the two joints. All right, before we go, I don't want to make this too long. It's already a 25-minute video, and we haven't even started skinning it. But the thing is, though, the second half of this is actually pretty short, and understanding this is fundamental. You need to understand what you're actually painting and how you're affecting it. So one thing I'm going to do is, without even touching the skin anymore, I'm going to make changes to this so that it can actually allow us to get a different result. So one of the things you're going to find in the skin is something called the interactive bind skin tool, or the move skin joints rather, and it'll allow you to move joints that have been skinned. But there's a fundamental issue with that tool where it's a tool, first of all. So that means it's a tool mode. And if you switched from position to rotation or any other of these tools, it will end the tool's function. So for example, if I select this and I go skin and I click on the move skin joints, I'll be able to select this thing and then move it. And that's great. You're probably thinking, well, that's what I want, right? But if I want to rotate it for whatever reason, let's say I wanted to rotate something, we just got out of that tool, and now I can't rotate it, because finding the right pivot, you're going to want to rotate things. But let's see what result we have from just doing this. So it's already a nicer knee in the sense of what's in the front, but now we're starting to have some issues in the back of the knee. So in this case, I would say that it's like you have to experiment until you get something that looks anatomically correct. In the case of a cylinder, I mean, I can't really tell if it's necessarily good or bad. But in the case of a real knee, which we're going to have in a little bit, all I know is that it's not going to be in the middle, and it's not going to be down here, because if I moved it down here, so for example, let's just, I'm not going to use the Maya tool because it limits what I can do. I'm going to go into my skin tool here and go deactivate skin by selecting the mesh, right? And by doing that, it'll allow you to actually move things and rotate things until you decide that that you want to reactivate the skin. And you can just click on preserve children. So if you'll have the same kind of functionality if you do this, because look, I'm rotating it, the children aren't being affected, I can move this, and that's great. The other thing that's important is you might want to, when you're doing this stuff, you're breaking your values for the joint orient, and now you don't have things zeroed out correctly, right? So you're going to want to start using some of the tools that I have up here to fix those kind of things, because there's no button in Maya really to fix these kind of things. So for example, this object here is zeroed out. This one is, well, they're zeroed out, but not, you don't, like, the positions are getting kind of weird. So basically, remember, if you remember the rules that we had, the axis of direct, like where it's pointing. So if I bring out the local axis just to see where it's pointing, the x-axis is no longer pointing at the child, because this was originally down here. So I want to fix this. And the same thing goes for this node over here. If I look at its axis, you're going to see that because it was created when it was flat, the x-axis is pointing straight ahead, and that clearly this is up here. This object is up here. So what you can do is select any child node to fix any parent node by simply going into the 0 and say realign parent x-axis, and it will adjust the parent to get it to realign. But we lost something over here. But yeah, for the most part, that should never be a problem. This one also, let's see. Oh, that's because preserve children. So just with this tool, you don't need to preserve it. So it should. Oh, it seems to be doing it for that one. Okay. 0 realign parent. These things are failing. I'd have to look into it why it's doing that, because it shouldn't be doing that. We don't need it right now. Maybe we can delete them for now, but I'm going to look into that. But generally, we are fixing the joints, and now the x-axis is pointing in the right direction. And you still have a zero joint, and in this case, it is just got a translation of 11 because that's what it should be. And this one's also 11. Because we moved it up, it's not exactly 11. Okay, so all clean. All overall, the everything's good. And let's say okay, so now I'm gonna show you what happens when you bring it down. So if I bring this down, and I decide, all right, let's reactivate the skin, and I look at this, you're gonna get this kind of an effect. So The further away you are from the center and going away from the direction in which the let's see, where the knee would be pointing out or the elbow would be pointing out, the more of a gummy effect that you're going to get. If I move this, let's say here, deactivate, and then I grab this and I move this up. If I move this maybe about here, which isn't exactly in the middle, it's just a little bit higher, you're you're probably going to get a much better effect. So I'm going to go back to the skin and reactivate it. Activate skin. Now we should see the result of that. We're starting to get a better, a nicer knee, but we're going to have to worry about the calf, and it depends on how it's been modeled. You'll have to worry about that. So, but as a general rule, go towards the part where the knee and the elbow would be, and not so much the place where the overlapping mass happens. And you should be able to preserve your shape better. Okay, so we've done enough of this, and I think we have a better understanding of how all this works. So hopefully that is clearer now as to how skins work and where you should put the pivots. And like I mentioned before, this is linear skinning. It's kind of like it's the gold standard for skinning. And even though there are things like dual quaternions and stuff like that, it comes with its own issues. So dual quaternions are great for maybe the knee itself, but then you have to use a third one, which is kind of like a mix of the two. So then you have to have a mask that says how much is dual quaternion and how much is linear. And it starts to get messy when you start having to deal with masks with two different systems, and also not optimal for video games in particular, because video games, for the most part, don't have dual quaternion skinning. They just have linear. And it's up to you to add nodes that preserve volumes and place pivots in the right place. Like the pivot placement is key, and you can add things for volume control. All right, so let's move on to our, finally, we're going to get back to our Stormtrooper. And we're going to talk about the Stormtrooper now, finally. So now I'm going to hide the armor, because we said we're going to be working on this guy. Let me just do this. And you're going to see that all of that, talking about that, understanding that, is super important, because what we're going to be using, the tools we're going to be using are going to be, it's going to be pretty quick. And because we have that understanding, everything's going to be flying from this point on. Even though I'm going to be showing some tools that are very, very specific to Maya. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to need to start adjusting this. Like I said, with the joints, this can't be the head joint, because when you add a skin modifier, or like this the skin weights tool, binding it, it's not going to know what the volume of the head joint is, because this normally would be the bone, and you're going to want to be able to move the whole head, not just and from the point of view of the skin tool, it thinks this is a nub, so it's only going to do the neck, and then everything's going to be attached to the neck. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to grab a joint like the head. Then I'm going to press shift and hold it while I make a duplicate of it. I'm going to put it up there like a crown. And then I'm going to shift select. I'm going to go like this, and then shift select the head and press P. So basically all I'm trying to do here is I created a child node to the head. I don't even care about the name. I'm not going to call it crown or anything like that, because we're going to be deleting these nodes when we're done with the skin and we brought it into Unreal. And the controls that we're going to have for this will have shapes that, for example, if I grab this shape and I give it or rather that joint, and I give it a shape, I could make it look like this type of thing, right? Because we'd have to zero out so it goes in the other direction. But this is a way of making a joint into a bone, is by adding a shape like this one, where we can actually control its scale. But unfortunately, this object, which is a shape that's been added to the joint, is not going to be useful to us when we're binding, because the bind doesn't understand what this object is. What it does understand is basically these extra nodes that have been added as children to define the volume, which is this bone now. So the head now is this, and it's only happening because we added this. Okay, so that already is going to improve how the skin's going to work. And just for the sake of argument, just we're going to be adding some bones to be able to improve the outcome. And I'm going to just create one that goes around here because I know that if you look at this mesh, it needs to understand where who it's going to go to. So if I put that around here, it's going to say, okay, this bone. So you look at the things that connect the joints, and that's going to be its volume. So the head is going to be prioritized for any vertices that are within that volume. This is going to prioritize. So it'd be good maybe to add a thing here so that it knows that these vertices over here should be going to that joint. But I'm going to limit to how many things are going to, or how many of these joints we're going to improve their volume by adding these extra nodes. We're not going to go too crazy. I'm just going to show you the basics. So for this, I'm going to make sure that I can't select the mesh while we're doing this because it'll get really annoying. Since we're going to be doing some changes to the other side, I'm going to delete anything on the right side of the body, and we're just going to duplicate, or we're going to do a mirror joint of whatever changes we do on one side of the body. Now, to one of the things that are important here to note is that these joints in this particular case are set in a way where this would be bad, right? It would make this all gummy, but it's because this was originally built with extra nodes that would get the preserve the pointiness of the elbow. So because we don't have those extra things, we're going to need to fix some of these joints. And I'm going to make sure I have preserve children on so that I can move things without having any trouble. And we said that middle is okay, but it's always better to go just a tiny bit more towards the back and maybe move it a little bit further like that. So that's where that's going to go. This guy is the same thing. There was a lot of extra stuff, so I'm going to, and one thing that's good is change the radius so you get an understanding of the volume that you're affecting. So by doing that, we can see that would be the deltoid and about there kind of thing. So changing the radius kind of helped us understand that shape. Now here's the thing about this particular area. The radius won't actually affect the outcome of the skinning, but the points between them do. So when you're looking at this area here in particular, it's going to, for the torso, this is where the torso is, this is where the clavicle is. So it might not have so much trouble with these two figuring these vertices which one to go to, but this guy kind of throws a wrench in there because all of this is going to be going to that one because it's the closest joint that exists. So I need something here, like a bone here that's a child of this node to define that the torso is actually pretty large. So normally if I try to shift drag like one of the children nodes to add an extra one, it's going to copy the entire, if I were to do a shift clone of this, it's, you're going to find that, okay, hang on a second, let me get rid of that, and let me back up here. Okay, so if I do this, you're going to notice that it created a hierarchy as well. So that's not good. It cloned everything, including all the children. So what I want is just to grab this thing that is a child node of the torso, and I want to be able, or this one too I could have used, and I just want to make a duplicate of it without the child nodes. There's nothing in Maya that really allows you to do that, so you can just go into duplicate over here in the bacon strip tools and duplicate with no children. That will create a node all by itself, so now we don't have to worry about duplicate hierarchies and stuff like that. And we're going to just bring this out a little bit so that we can give something for these vertices over here to fight against, to find the torso, basically. So now the torso is defined by these lines, and these vertices over here are now going to start using, are going to be able to find the torso instead of just the bicep, right? So this is useful to us, especially for the armpit. We're basically saying the armpit here, please use the torso. And this is something that through just practice you would have found that was causing you some issues. And I'm going to do that for all of these spine bones. So I'm just going to grab a child node, and then duplicate with no children will allow me to create these little fins, so to speak, that increase the volume of that joint. So if you look at this, now this joint, it understands that it's this area, and for the most part, it shouldn't be fighting any other joints other than the spine. So I'm going to do another one here, duplicate no children, and that will allow me to do this kind of thing. And now it understands that the space a little bit better. Okay, and then we're going to use tools to duplicate everything on the other side, so it's all good. And let's see here. So we fixed the shoulder, the elbow. The hand's going to be fine, except there's no tips on the fingers. So in this case, I'm going to use Shift, and because it doesn't have a hierarchy, it's nice and easy. I Shift select, press P, and now I have a concept of the end of the thumb, right? So now it knows where to find the correct joint for all these vertices that are over here. And I'm going to do that for all of them. And again, I don't really care about naming for these things, because they are going to be throwaway objects that are just being used for that volume. And all I'm doing is Shift select cloning, and then Shift selecting the object that we cloned from, and then making it so that that is a child of that node, thus extending the understanding of what those vertices can affect. Now, if I do that again here, we're good to go. Down below, well, we may need to move some of these vertices, some of these bones. So maybe preserve children and just move the knee a little bit further forward, like we saw before in the previous example. And for the thigh, we're gonna get pillow butt. So I'm just gonna move it just a little further back, and that should be fine. Now the foot here, turning off preserve children, I'm just going to create again a mass so that it understands that everything from that point on basically goes to that joint. And I think we're getting pretty close to, yeah, I think we're almost done. So this is the worst part of it. So this is the part that takes the longest. And all I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring out under skeleton, there is a mirror joints tool. I'm just going to bring this out because I'm going to be pressing the button a couple of times. I've got it set to YZ, which means it's going to mirror along the x-axis. And it's going to use the mirror function tool based on behavior. And I've got some naming convention things that is going to be renaming some of the bones so that they have the _R, which is very much the Unreal setting. And if I click like this, boop, it should create correctly everything that I needed. I wish I could multi-select things, but unfortunately this tool doesn't work with multi-selection. You have to kind of do each chain one by one. It doesn't take long. Let's be honest, okay? That's not going to take too long. And I think we're pretty much ready to skin. Okay, so we're going to see what that gives us as a result. Like all things in the world of 3D, always save scene. We're going to call this Stormtrooper Skin Whip Work in Progress 01. Okay, you never know. Things could break. It's good to save every once in a while, and I think this is a good moment to save. Okay, so now that we have all this set up, now what we're going to do is we're going to select the mesh ahead of it, have it in reference mode. So now I can select it again because I turned it off. So meshes are selectable again. Or at least the things in that layer called meshes. I'm going to press Q so that I can get that gizmo out of the way so I can select the root node. That is the node that the entire skeleton is connected to. And all I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into skin, and we're going to do a bind skin with options on. Now, I personally think you should go through every bind method that there is so you can see what Maya can provide you with. For this example, and this method that I've discovered that other people have also been using, I find that this method works really well. So what we're going to do is we're going to just jump to the thing that I think works well, and we'll save you a lot of time. And go to the geodesic voxel method. If you don't know what a voxel is, you should look it up. It's a very interesting thing. A lot of people just call it a three-dimensional pixel. But think of it like Minecraft. They're like little blocks that define the thing. So imagine that this character, this mesh, got broken up into little tiny Minecraft blocks, and it's using those little pieces to figure out which joint it is closest to figure out the skin weight that goes with it. And I'm going to set this one. This is important. The max influence is going to be set to 1. And this is kind of like the sushi rig. When you have a max influence of 1, it's saying for every vertice that's here, find the best joint that will match. Well, that's for this vertice. So it's kind of like when you were chopping it up, you were just saying, I'm chopping up all these vertices so they follow that one bone. Same thing here. It's doing the same thing. And the reason why we're doing this is because we're going to use another tool later to smooth between these things. And I find this method actually gets you to the finish line much quicker. So I'm going to leave the resolution at 512. And it's remember the thing I talked about linear and all that? Here you have the dual quaternion and the one that blends between the two based on maps. We just want classic linear. We're sticking to that for now. And we do want it to normalize. And the weight distribution is going to be based on distance, basically those little Minecraft blocks. How far they are from the joints will be determining what the value is. All right, so I'm just going to go apply. Don't worry about that error. It's new. And now, anyways, point is, now if we look at what we're doing, we're going to see that if I hadn't put that thing there, you'd be affecting the entire torso. And you're probably thinking, wow, that's really ugly. This like it's chunky. It's like this is not good. How is this saving me time? Well, the thing is, it's overall for only having to be able to select one bone. It did a pretty good job. Over here, it's not so great. So maybe we can preemptively just adjust that. See, like this area here, it didn't do a very good job. So maybe what we can do is go to, let's just go through these. We're going to see if we can find the leg. Eventually, it's down. Oh, there. Maybe for this one, we can paint it in. You know, so let's help it out. Like usually, I'll figure out a method that that does this a little better. And we want the other thigh as well. Thigh right. We're going to fix it up a little. Okay, that's the only area that I find is a little tricky, and I'll figure out a method to get that done a little better. Anyways, point is, for the most part, you're going to find that this did a good job. And you can be rough around this at this stage. It's fine that there's a couple vertices that are not looking great. Because now we're going to grab the mesh, and we're going to go into deform. And there's going to be a thing called, let's see if I can find it. Sometimes I have trouble finding it. Delta mush. There we go. I'm just going to put it on. And the thing that's interesting about this one is we don't need the options because it's an active thing that you can modify in the channel box. So I'm just going to, by default, I'm just going to use the default settings for now. You're going to notice it's already pretty good. It's getting, you know, there's a few issues here and there. Maybe I can animate these joints so I can see what's going on. So if I go select that and then right click and go select hierarchy, I can add a key to everything but rotation only on all these joints. And then I can go to frame 20 and maybe rotate this like so. And then go to frame 40, lift it. And I can do the same thing with this so I can see what's going on. See. Okay. Same thing with the knees. I want to see what's going on here. So on. You normally would do this kind of stuff. Okay. And it's just calisthenics. Now I'm going to select the mesh. I'm going to the delta mesh that we added. And the smoothing iterations is the thing that we want to play with. I want to change those values until we start seeing some preservation here. Maybe 30. And notice it's already for a quick pass. That's not bad. considering we're just rotating single bones, because normally this would include the clavicle as well. You're going to lift the clavicle. So I would animate that. It's not terribly bad. So maybe 30. Look at that. That's not half bad. And pretty much you're going to find that the skin is pretty good for it's like we're almost done. That's crazy. It's crazy to me. Doing all this manually and painting and takes a long time. But this just needs a few adjustments, and we're good to go. Now here's the weird thing with Maya and its deformers. You can't keep that on top. It has to be converted into a skin when you're done. So you have to use this Bake Deformation to Skin Weights tool. And number of influences, I'm going to leave it at 3. And normally this isn't filled out. This tool is quite frankly very janky, but it is fun because you can do this kind of thing where you grab it from the outliner. This is the mesh that's got skinned, right? You middle click drag it into this tool, and this is the root that's telling me this is what the skeleton is. And so that we know that what we're doing. We're going to do colorized skeleton. It's just going to create random colors. And just enjoy the show while it goes through each joint and rotates it. You'll have a little percentage here. It's going through everything. And it's determining the best values. There we go. So it's done. When you see the clown colors, it means it's finished its little show. Okay, so now if I look at my animation, this is an actual skin that's driving it now, not just the Delta mush, and this ain't half bad. Frankly, for the little animation that we did to just test to see things, that butt doesn't lose too much volume. That's not bad at all. And the ankle, well, needs a bit of work because the heel is a little off. Maybe we should have added a bone for the heel to be able to preserve it. And that knee looks pretty meaty. Looks like a good solid knee. If you got hit by that, it would hurt. So that's how you know it's not a mushy knee. And you got a pretty good elbow here where it's preserving the volume in the back as well too. So for the most part, you're pretty much done for skinning this mesh here. Now, can't forget that we also have this armor that we need to skin, right? So this is what I'm going to do. Okay, like we're gonna use the under armor that we have here to help us skin the armor, and the armor should be a lot easier because we'll be able to select vertices based on polygroups and just go 100%, and that should be a lot easier. So in order to be able to transfer the skin weight and not have to go through all that all over again, I'm going to select the mesh. Also, you don't want to go over again because it might give you a different result. So you really want to have the under armor, and at this point I'm going to get rid of the. You really want to have the under armor transfer its weight to the armor, and then you can cherry pick parts of the armor and say this is 100% to that, and so on. All right, and everything else, if it's mushy, it's fine. I mean, that's on the art director and all of the designers. All the concept artists need to understand that when they create armor, it has to be realistically functional to some extent, or else it's going to turn into taffy. It's going to turn into rubber. And then your cosplayers are not going to be very happy. So anyways, so what we're going to do now is we're just going to transfer what we have on this onto the armor. And then, like I said, cherry pick to fix whatever we need. Okay, so in order to do that, we need to first add a dummy skin onto this. So I'm going to select the mesh. I'm pressing Q to get rid of the gizmo so I can select stuff. And I selected the root node. And now I'm going to go bind skin. In this case, actually, it doesn't matter if it's 1 or not, because later when we do the skin copy, it's going to change that. So I'm going to go apply. And now, if I look at my animation, there should be a skin, which isn't half bad, to be honest with you. Like, I mean, to fix this, it's not a big deal. Already, this is almost good. But anyhow, we're going to try to transfer things because maybe the chest isn't going to look quite right. Like if I rotate this, yeah, it's not very nice. So we need to transfer from one to the other. So I'm going to select the base mesh and I'm going to be transferring that weight onto the armor. And you do that by going into skin. And there's a copy skin weights. And I'm just going to open up the options to make sure it's good. And for now, we're just going to use the closest point on surface. There are methods with ray casting and so on. And you can even use UV space, which is very, very handy. Not a lot of softwares have that. So props to the guy who wrote that. And the skin cluster here from source to target, it's found because of the order of selection. It knows that I'm going from the base body to the trooper armor. So I'm going to press apply. And now if I look, it should be a lot better because it's following the skin that's underneath much more accurately. So if I were to do that test again with the chest, it's going to be good enough because of you're not supposed to move in this armor. Like, what were they expecting? Anyways, bad design for armor. For mobility, anyways. Maybe that's why they keep missing. Okay, so now the thing that we were talking about. You'll have to forgive me. I just had a pneumonia, so I'm just going to cough and drink a little. I'm going to probably just drink first and see if that fixes it. All right. I could edit that out, but anyways, so just moving on quickly here. This is a skin, right? We have a skin cluster here, so we know that it's been skinned. In order to fix some of the things that that are clearly going to be happening here. So, like, look, if I do this, that armor should not bend like that. It shouldn't be taffy, and we can fix that at least with that kind of thing. So I'm just going to open up the skin, and I'm just going to see if I can find that shoulder. I'm just pressing on the, so these are spine 3, that's clavicle. I want upper arm, there we go. And then I'm going to go select. And in this case, if I'm careful, I shouldn't be accidentally selecting the wrong thing. So if I double click on any vertice and shift, double click on the vertices on another one, and just, go around, check, making sure you've grabbed everything. You can go into wireframe mode maybe and just to make sure. But for this, for what we're doing here, all I'm going to do is make sure my value is 1, opacity is 1, and you could go replace or add, doesn't matter. You're basically making sure that this armor piece is 100% following that, and then this armor piece, we could go in here and go select, double click, shift double click on a vertice. You got, all right, so we got this one. This one, and I'm having a little trouble selecting that one down there. Yeah, it's because it's behind. Anyways, it's inside the inside. We got a couple of pieces here too. Shift, double click, shift, double click. I should have selected all the little pieces that are there. I see there's another one here in here. Okay, we're gonna be good for now. Just to show this last bit. And now we're gonna hit the flood button. Now that piece is going to be following that. And that should be good enough for now. We're just going to be looking at the result. And what we're going to find is that these armor pieces now are reacting the way we'd expected, where it's following 100% the bone that it should. And this is reacting well. So now the rest is just a question of saying this piece is 100% that thing, and the crotch area is going to be following the pelvis, and so on. You might have some issues with something like a knee, the kneecap thing. Look, the way I would do this is I would grab this and find the calf area and imagine it's like a boot. Like normally what you can do is you can add another bone that does like an average between these two bones, and then get it to actually stay there. But I'm going to do this with this lower part here, And that makes sense to me because there are boots that are like that. You know, think of like a leather boot that would do that. And now that makes sense because there are boots that do that kind of thing. And I think we're just with a little bit of time, like you go through all the different parts, and you'd be done with your skin in no time. Like, okay, so the video is a bit long. It's a 1 hour video, and we spent a good half hour just talking about a cylinder. But our understanding of skinning improved, and now we're almost done with the skin for this character. And if we were to, you know, delete these nodes that we added, um, then we're probably going to be fine for an engine later to be able to transfer stuff. Like these bones are they were just temporary. We're good to go. Even all the ones for the fingers, so I'd get rid of the ones for the fingers. And like this is going to be weird because if I select it here now, it's not actually that bad. It's got just a little bit there. It's not bad at all. That little extra bone that we added really did the trick. So not bad at all. We got some work here. Sorry. So yeah. So in a nutshell, that's not too bad considering we talked about a cylinder for half an hour, and we're already at a stage where we're getting pretty close to having something functional. Frankly, normally skinning takes much longer. Excuse me. It's much longer to do. So I'm gonna go drink some water, and with all this free time that I have, I'm gonna go do something else because we saved a lot of time for skinning on this, and the results aren't half bad. So, all right. So I think that covers skinning for this character. Now the next thing would be after we've skinned it to create an MVP rig for it, and you'd be in a good place because then you can export that into an engine. All right. So that's it for this one.